What is up, humans of the cardboard? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we've got a new deck profile. This one's pretty cool. It's one I had an idea for a while ago, but Adagnister cards were pretty expensive for a minute there. Now we have the Megatin, so like the entire archetype is like cheap as dirt, which I love. So yeah, today we're looking at Adagnisters, but not by themselves, not a pure variant, because there's a million pure variants. They're actually a pretty competent competitive deck, but this has a little spicy code talkerness to it. So I'll show you some of that stuff. It essentially just gives you some cool extenders and cool like pivot lines that you can go into like different plays, aside from just ending on the regular towers, and sometimes in conjunction with ending on the towers play. But we'll get into that. Yeah, let's just jump into it. So starting off, of course, here with the main deck, we're starting off with the Adagnister starters. We have triple Achichi and triple Picari. These are essentially one card combos in their own right. They're both pretty good. They're both going to get you to at least the towers play, and you gotta love it. So pretty good. All right. Next up, we have a bunch of one-ofs for the Adagnister package. One Doyan, one Baruru, one Hiari, one Gachiri, and this is supposed to be a proxy for Donmari. That's my fault. I almost didn't even realize that I didn't have Donmari. It's because I think originally I thought Donmari was garbage, but it's only relevant because all the deck really wants to do is make the arrival, and making the arrival is so much better if you can make it with this guy engrave, and that's not super hard to do. So if you can do it, why the hell not? But yep, it's like one of the few only bricks in the deck, but we'll take that. So that's it for the standard like Adagnister package here. Also, Gachiri I think is better overall than Dashin because this becomes a searchable card off of some of the Code Talker stuff as well, and so this functions better with the Code Talker package more so than the Dashin does. So I think Hiari is the pick over Dashin, and I think Gachiri also for a similar reason is a pick over Dashin, because they're the same attribute, but you might as well play the more universally good one in the list. All right, next up here, we move to our mini coder. I call them like mini coders usually, but they're pretty cool. So I'm playing 2 microcoder and 2 code generator right now. I also play a dotscaper. This is just an engine requirement for the code generator there. But if you don't know how the code talkers work, they all work exactly the same, where if they are used for the link summon of a code talker, they can do an effect, right? And if they're used in hand, they can do one thing. If they're used from the field, they can do another thing if you want. And so their other function is that they allow you to link summon directly into a code talker from hand, using them and like a Cyberse monster you have on the field. So they kind of let you cheat out link summoning. They're really good extenders, specifically generators, the good extender. Microcoder gives you extra utility because when it's used as link material for a code talker, it lets you search any Signet spell or trap. There's a lot of good ones out there. There's particularly 3 good ones that we're playing at the moment. And then Code Generator, when this card is used from hand for a Code Talker, you can Foolish Burial any Cyberse monster with 1200 or less attack. So you send Dotscaper, and then Dotscaper immediately reborns itself. Still works, still goes pretty well. Also, Dotscaper is not a full-on brick. You'll see in the extra deck, space is really tight, so I'm not facilitating this card to its maximum potential, but it is still like a card that lets you link up really easily. So even if you see this with like any extender, like you still get to like, you can still get to like some pretty decent link plays. So we'll take that. All right, and then the last Cyberse monster we play in the main is 2 copies of Parallel XC. This also becomes searchable via some of the Code Talker stuff, but also just a generic good Cyberse extender anyway. Can chain block certain things, and just gets you 2 bodies for the price of 1, which is pretty good. And it's wind. Keep in mind that it's wind. So that's it for the actual like Cyberse monsters. The rest of the main deck monsters, we have Triple Ash and Double Nib. Just some defensive cards. Unfortunately, because we're playing the Code Talker package, you can't fit in as many hand traps and defensive cards like Droplet that Adagnisters would otherwise like to be playing, which is what it is. Like, I'm not upset about it. But because like the Code Talkers, whereas you don't have as many defensive cards, the Code Talkers help you play through interaction, which is really nice. So there you go. That finishes off the monsters for the main deck. Then for the AI spells, 1 Ignister Island, This card is pretty good, but I think in a variant that's not pure, it's not as good to play like 2 or 3 of it. I like it at just 1. I don't really want to see this in my hand because we have like slightly different ratios of ad ignister monsters. It's not as good to hard see this. We do not always need, in fact, we really rarely need, like absolutely have to see this card to be able to play. The deck can actually play without this card a lot of the time. Next up here we have triple I Meet You. This card's very important. This card reveals any Cyberse with 2300 attack exactly from extra deck and then searches an ad ignister with the same attribute. What's really cool is that a lot of the Code Talker extra deck monsters actually have exactly 23, so the synergy there allowing this card to search certain things without having to play bad ad ignister extra deck monsters is really nice. But just a nice consistency card. Unfortunately, Picari's not searchable off this card, but at least a Chi-Chi is. And then Double Reborn. I've seen some people play 3 of this card. I think, again, not a pure list. I don't think 3 is mandatory. Just a little bit of a space thing here, but it's also pretty searchable because getting to Picari is really easy. So we will take that as well. But a very important card nonetheless for your combos, for recovery, all that stuff. Then we get to some of the Signet stuff, or you could call it Code Talker stuff, because the Code Talkers have good synergy with the Signet stuff specifically. We've got triple Signet mining. This card is a staple in the deck anyway, because it searches any level 4 or lower Cyberse. That can search you some of your really good extenders, like Microcoder or Code Generator, or some of your starters, like Picari or Chi-Chi as well. Next up, a really huge power card, Signet Codec. This card's insane. This card's crazy. I don't really need to say much more, but just don't forget it. This card's just insane. If you don't know how this card works, it says if a Code Talker monster is special summoned from the extra deck to your field, you can target one of those monsters and add a Cyberse monster with the same attribute from deck to hand. Locks you into Cyberses from the extra deck for the rest of the turn, but that literally doesn't matter, and it's not once per turn. All it is once one attribute per turn, I guess. Or one of each attribute per turn. So like you can search, if you search a dark, that means you just can't search darks anymore off of this card for the rest of the turn. But you can search earths, you can search winds, and others if you're able to like find room for those. But really crazy card. It's actually insane. So that's it for the Signet stuff. This card's insane. This card like gives you so much link material. It's crazy. This card makes it so hard to hand trap this deck. Because like you're just able to like get so much link material. Nib is really the only thing I would say that's like super specifically annoying to this deck. Everything else is like so underwhelming. Then for some just nice, just generic spells, double Cosmic Cyclone, 1 Monster Reborn, 1 Called by the Grave. You could easily try and play 2 more hand traps in this slot, but I like having the Cosmics. This deck doesn't love back row decks, and I honestly in the extra couldn't find room for Lingarebo, so playing into trap decks is kind of annoying, so I like having Cosmic in the main. Also means we don't lose to Mystic Mine game 1 necessarily, and yeah. Monster Reborn's insane. This allows you to like go through the ad ignister play, and if you went through Microcoder to do it just to get as like link extra link material, you can just like reborn the Transcode Talker at the end of the play and then just like end on the ad ignister with his negate with Don Mari, as well as the transcode and the trap card for that as well. So it just makes it gives you the potential for like insane boards, and is a great way to play through certain stuff. And then Called is Called, don't need to explain that at all. And then we finish up here with the traps. We have 1 copy of Signet Conflict, and then we finish with 3 Imperms as well. So 8 hand traps in the main with the 2 Cosmics. You can I still fit in like 10 slots for like defensive cards, but Conflict's also like insane. If you don't know what this card does, if you control a Code Talker and your opponent activates a spell, trap, or monster effect, negate it, banish that card, and then your opponent can't activate any cards or effects of cards with the same original name as that card until the end of the next turn. So it's a negate and banish that then locks them out of using any other copies of that card until the end of the next turn. So it has like that Called by the Grave clause, which is really good. Card's insane. So that is it for the main deck. 43 in the main. It seems crazy, but it's pretty good. It's really consistent, which I love. The Code Talker package makes it so that like you don't even necessarily have to see a search card for either of these to play, whereas normal ad ignisters like kind of needs to see one of these in some way to be able to play. Sometimes just any normal summonable Cyberse with like a generator or a coder can like get you home, and that feels really good. So 43 in the main. Wish I could cut it down a little bit. I will talk about that at the end, what I might consider dropping. But moving to the extra deck, starting off here with our double Dark Infants. We're only playing the one island, so I think 2 of this is pretty important, right? If you go turn 1 and try to use it and it gets negated and you just don't have a good hand, you need the second one to be able to try and get that search off on the next turn. It just matters. It comes up. Double copies of Splash Mage. Again, you're going to go through this almost every turn 1, so I want to have the second one in the deck so that I can, on the next turn, make a strong play to start Link climbing. Then for some Link 2 action, well, more Link 2 action, 1 Cyberse Wicked and 1 regular Code Talker. Wicked's just important for like the standard Add-Ignister combo. I almost wanted to try and drop this card, but I realized very quickly that if you just open like a very standard Add-Ignister hand, you do need this card to just be able to do those combos. This card gets you a ton of advantage, which is really important. And then Code Talker, he's really important because if you make him while Codec's on the field, you get to search Microcoder, and it allows to make Microcoder and Code Generator the easiest to use as extenders because this just is the Link 2. So you just need any Cyberse on board and you can get into this guy with them in hand and then get their effects off and just start plussing. It's really good. Link 3s for the Add-Ignisters, we have Dark Templar and Fire Phoenix. Dark Templar is just really strong. If this card resolves, you just get like so much advantage. It's crazy. And then Fire Phoenix, you almost never summon. Sometimes you summon it just for the sole fact that you want to like double co-link a Firewall Dragon. But other than that, you're usually just using this as a fire that you can reveal with 2300 attack. Off of the I Meet You, and then be able to search a Chi-Chi, because you have to be able to search at least a Chi-Chi or Picari. Chi-Chi's the better one, so you have to play this. If Decotar Heat Soul comes out, we drop this immediately, and I'll talk about another card in the extra as well that would very quickly change also. Then we get to the Code Talker Link 3s. Double transcode, 1 Xcode. Double transcode is very important for the same reason that we play double Splash Mage. Just for that recovery, you want to have the second copy always available to you. And then Xcode is really cool because 1, it's another attribute Code Talker, so that when you do a play with Codec on the field, it gives you the potential to search out Parallel Exceed. And then obviously Parallel Exceed is an awesome extender. And plus it also isn't a bad card to end on, because if you have just like transcode in this co-linked, then like they're both indestructible, they're both intargetable, and they're both buffed by 1,000, I believe. So they'll both be 33 untargetable and indestructible by card effects. And you probably also, if you got this far, you probably also searched the counter trap, which is actually pretty good. And it also locks a zone down, which actually does affect some decks. It can. It really can. Not all the time, but it can. 1 access Code Talker. You have to play at least 1 in this list. Like it's too good not to. You have like a million 1-card access codes in the deck. Play it if you can. It's budget. I know if you're budget though, you don't like, you can find something else. Everything else in the deck is pretty budget aside from that. Firewall Dragon. This card is pretty good because if you go down one of the Code Talker lines, you almost always want to try and end on like the set counter trap with like at least Firewall co-linked, because you'll just have like a bounce and an Omni Negate Banish, which is already pretty good. And you also probably have like follow-up as well. So I like that a lot. This card's really good. I love how flexible it is, that like even if your opponent just like leads with Lightning Storm, you can kind of just be like, let me just get a follow-up back from grave. Let me just add a monster I want for follow-up back from grave. And even though you lose your board, you will still have a chance to make a crackback on the next turn. Really good card though. In certain hands, you can also double co-link it, so it's a double bounce, which is really insane. 1 Arrival Cyberse Add-Ignister. You have to play it as part of the Add-Ignister core. It's a win condition a lot of the time, but you know, just one of. It's good. It's really good. And then I do play the Wind Pegasus at Ignister, because I do think being able to end with this in grave is like really strong. It just makes your board that much more disgusting to try and break for your opponent, which we want to do in a deck like this. So there you have it. That is it for our extra deck and our main deck. What I was talking about before is if we get Heat Soul, right, and you want to still try and play this kind of variant, you have to drop Fire Phoenix for Heat Soul, right? It's another 2300, it's fire, except it's just like amazing, where Fire Phoenix is like garbage. You almost never use it. And in that instance, I don't think we need to play Xcode anymore, because it gives us another cool attribute to be able to get like a free search off of Codec with. So I don't think you need the Xcode anymore. You'd rather just be making him anyway because he's going to get you a draw, potentially 2 if you leave him on field for your opponent's turn. And you just need to figure out how you switch off of Parallel Exceed, right? Because that's your wind search target. We have a Chi-Chi, so that's 1 fire target, but that's usually a starter. Do you want to be searching follow-up, or do you want to be searching a way to potentially continue to extend? So you might want to try and include 1 fire attribute Cyberse monster that like helps you extend, but other than that, you don't need anything crazy, and that'll free up 1 open slot in the extra because you're going take this out, put 1 Heat Soul in, and so you would have an open slot. So you could look at something like Security Dragon. You could look at some Link 1s that allow for a little bit of flexible play with stuff like Dotscaper, making that a little bit less bricky in the deck. Just because like if you just have a Link 1 that Dotscaper can be used to make, you just have a 1-card access code with Dotscaper, which can matter. It's going to come up few and far between, but it could come up theoretically. But yeah, that's the list for today. It's really like, I've honestly been surprised. I've literally been looking at hands, drawing hands, and I'm really like, wow, I'm setting up 1 or 2 interruptions with like protection through Ash and Perm, or at least 1 Ash or 1 Imperm, or any 1 hand trap. Outside of Nib, Nib can still be annoying for the deck, but the deck is so recursive a lot of the time too. Is like you have so many 1-card starters, a lot of times you still just end with like either a 1-card play for next turn, or something else, and like defensive cards as well, that usually it's not the biggest deal if you get nibbed. But it is the only one that like I think is like the 1 hand trap that is kind of tough to deal with for the deck. So, but other than that, the deck seems really strong. I definitely recommend you try this type of build out if you are an Ignister player, just to see how it goes, see the different play lines. I think the biggest weakness of the deck right now, or the biggest reason to maybe not go for this kind of list, is just extra deck space. It's kind of tight. There was like 3 or 4 other cards. There's like Update Jammer. You could try and play Double Access Code. You could try and play the Security Dragon, right? You could play Lingaribo and maybe another Link 1 if you wanted it. Like Almirage makes like Ash Blossom potentially like a card that's nice in the deck, and Inverted, Code Talker Inverted. Like there's actually a lot of different cards you could consider. It's just space. Space is really, really tight, but I think for the most part we have it solved here. So yeah. That's going to do it for me here today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, let me know in the comment section here down below your thoughts on the list. What would you try and change up about the list here? Because I'm just one man building these decks by my lonesome. And yeah, subscribe if you haven't. You want to see more deck profiles from me in the future. I love you guys. See you in the next one. Peace.